goodness, you guys. How is everybody doing? It's been a while. It's been a while. There's been some things going on. We're gonna talk about it today. Listen, I cannot believe that I am almost 35 weeks. This is ridiculous. This is insane. I do not feel like I am gonna be 35 weeks this week. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about today, so I'm gonna kind of just jump into it. Before we get started, I just want to show you what I'm drinking today. This is the Venti Iced Passion Tango Tea Lemonade. I get light lemonade and light water because I don't love the flavor of lemonade. But listen, this is what they did. Starbucks got rid of the liquid cane, which used to be in this drink, and they replaced it with the classic. The classic is not good in this drink. I'm just gonna tell you right now, classic, not good. You know what is though, is brown sugar. So I have been getting it with a few pumps of brown sugar instead, which I find is just so much better. So I can actually enjoy it now. Especially because this is the only decaffeinated refresher or iced tea that Starbucks has. Everything else has caffeine in it. And I just don't want caffeine later in the day. So I like to pick this up for a nice little bevy later in the day, for a nice little refreshing bevy, but I don't want the caffeine. So I'm glad I found a way that I actually kind of enjoy it. So like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. If you can tell by the title, I had a little ER trip last week. So was it last week or was it the week before? It might have been the week before. It was the week before. I had a little ER trip that I'm going to talk about at the end of this video. We're going to get into my symptoms currently. Just have my little pregnancy notebook here. So we are 34 weeks, which is absolutely crazy. I'm going to kind of talk you guys through 28 weeks to 34 weeks. Not a lot is different from my previous video, which was I think 22 to 28 weeks. Not a ton is different. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing my face, my name is Sydney. I'm a perinatal athletic therapist and postnatal fitness specialist, but I am currently going through my first pregnancy and taking you guys through the entire process, through my pregnancy, all the things I've been experiencing, things I didn't expect, things I'm doing to make sure that I am prepped and ready for labor and postpartum and all that kind of good stuff. So if any of that stuff sounds of interest to you, please feel free to subscribe and stick around for a while. I experienced lightning crotch for the first time. Lightning crotch is not the same as symphysis pubis dysfunction, which a lot of people think that it is. So essentially, symphysis pubis dysfunction, or SPD, is essentially the like rubbing together of the front of your pelvis. Now, it's also not comfortable, but it's just not the same thing. Lightning crotch is where your baby is shifting or moving or putting pressure on some of the nerves that innervate your pelvis and your pelvic floor muscles. And essentially it sends like an electric shock into your vaginal area. And it happens randomly. It happens at the most random times. It's literally when like baby is moving, when you just get this like shift in movement, sends an electric shock straight to the vagine. And this is very, very uncomfortable. It made me like basically drop to my knees a couple times. I only experienced it 3 times, and it was over the course of like, I want to say 4 or 5 hours. So I think it was just whatever position baby was in. I haven't experienced it since then, and I want to say that was like maybe at 32 or 33 weeks. So I haven't really experienced it since then. It's been fine. The next thing I've been experiencing, which I will talk a little bit more about later, is I had a really, really bad cough for like 2 weeks straight. And this put a lot of pressure down into my pelvic floor. And I I wouldn't doubt that it either created a bit of a prolapse or made whatever prolapse I had a little bit worse, because I can definitely feel that my cervix has dropped. And that was very uncomfortable. It was just a lot of extra pelvic pressure that I just wasn't used to having there. So that cold and that cough brought on a lot of things, like the ER visit, which I'll talk about in a bit. But the other thing it also brought on was nosebleeds. I would say for about 4 days straight, every morning when I blew my nose, like, you know, first thing in the morning, you're a little more congested. Like, you just gotta like clear the stuff out that's in your sinuses, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you're coughing a lot more, you're blowing stuff out of your nose, all like the green gook and whatever. So every morning for about 4 mornings, I was getting nosebleeds. I'm not just talking about like a couple dribbles out of my nose. Like the one night, it actually happened in the middle of the night. I coughed and my nose exploded. Like, it went all over my pillow. It went all over my blankets. My clothes were covered in blood. And then walking to the bathroom, like, I was trying to plug my nose and it was like still dripping out. I had nothing close to me that I could grab I should have honestly just used my shirt. Like, I had nothing close to me that I could grab. So I'm running down the stairs as fast as I can at 33 weeks pregnant. And there's just blood dripping out of my nose. It went all over the bathroom. Like, it was everywhere. So each of these 4 days, I had these awful, awful nosebleeds. And now if you're prone to nosebleeds, I used to be really prone to them. I used to have them all the time. If you're prone to nosebleeds, there's this thing that happens with nosebleeds that is like the weird, Cooper's just scratching. It's like a weirdly satisfying thing. And you're gonna think this is disgusting if you don't like blood or if this grosses you out. So I apologize. Fair warning. There's this thing that happens where your blood starts to clot like in your sinuses. And if you've got some Kleenexes or something shoved up there and you start to pull them out, you pull out like this massive blood clot. And that was happening every time, like multiple times. I was just pulling out like clots of blood out of my nose, which felt so good, but also was so gross at the same time. But anyways, whether that was pregnancy related or that was cold related, I don't know. But I do think the level of blood that my body was releasing was because of pregnancy, just because of increased blood volume. The other thing, I'm feeling a heck of a lot of hiccups in my belly. This little guy gets hiccups like probably once a day for about 10 minutes. They are super regular. They're really close together. And it just feels like I'm having a little bit of like a belly spasm. I think it's adorable, but it's not as fun when it's at nighttime. But yeah, he's just been hiccuping away. I've definitely been more fatigued the last little bit, and I wouldn't say like exhausted. I would say I just feel a little more tired. Like, I just feel like I would rather sit on the couch and do anything else. But not anything like super fatigue or anything like that. I just feel a little more tired than I did before. And the other thing too is I'm out of breath a lot more easily. Like, I find if I go up and down the stairs like twice in a row, by the time I get to the bottom or by the time I get back to the top, I need a couple seconds to just take a couple deep breaths, because that's how out of breath I feel. And just the fact that my belly is so much bigger than it was before, I'm noticing certain movements are just getting tough to do, like bending down to pick something up or to put my shoes on. Some of those types of movements I just have to do a little bit differently. I can't do a lot of things the way I used to, because I can't fold in half nearly as nicely as I used to be able to. Okay, so that's really all the changes from the last couple of weeks. Now let's talk about my ER visit. Okay, so it was 2 Wednesdays ago, so like a week and a half ago. I had this cough like I was talking about. I had this like awful, awful, awful cough. And I think because I had been coughing so much, my ribs, my obliques, my abdominal muscles, everything was just so tense because I had been coughing just so much. Like it was one of those dry, unproductive coughs where you can't stop it from happening. And once you start, you just can't stop. And with having decreased space in my belly to begin with, all my muscles were just so tense. So I got home from work on this Wednesday. My husband was home because he had some back discomfort, so he didn't go to work. So we went for a short walk. I want to say it was about 4 o'clock. We had just got back. Oh no, maybe it was closer to 5. Either way. We got inside. I took my shoes off. I coughed and felt instantly the most excruciating pain I had ever felt in my life in my ribs, in the side of my ribs. They kind of wrapped from like this back side mid-shaft area right around to the front. The pain was so excruciating. I could not take a deep breath in, and I started to panic because I couldn't breathe. And so like every time I tried to take a deep breath, the searing pain that was going from my ribs like into my lungs was so intense that I could not take a deep breath in, and I couldn't override it. Like normally I'm pretty good at like talking myself through something or just being like, okay, I just need to take a second. I need to take a deep breath, whatever the case may be. In this situation, I could not get a breath in. I couldn't. It was so incredibly painful. So I started to panic because I couldn't breathe. And then I started to cry because I couldn't breathe. And we all know that when you start to cry, it doesn't really help the situation, right? And then what really scared me was I didn't feel the baby move for a long time. And so he is normally very active. I can typically feel him move like a few times an hour for sure. Normally I feel him move a lot more, and all of a sudden I didn't feel him move anymore. So that made me panic even more. I was sitting on the couch. My husband helped me get into a semi-comfortable position on the couch where I didn't feel quite as much excruciating pain, but it was still hard to breathe. He helped me get into a somewhat comfortable position. I couldn't get up by myself. I couldn't use the toilet by myself. Like I needed his help to move around. That's how excruciating this pain was. And because your ribs are connected to your abdominal muscles, they're connected to your back, they're connected to your pelvis through like via different muscles. And so everything is very much connected there. So I started texting. I have connections to a bunch of different practitioners. So I started texting a bunch of chiropractors. I texted the physio that I worked with. I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know how to make this more comfortable for myself. It got to the point where I just was so short of breath and I was panicking so much that I called my midwife and I was like, what do I do? Do I need to go to Windsor? So because my midwife is from Windsor, which is like 40 minutes away from where I live, I didn't know if I had to go to Windsor in order to be seen by somebody. She said, no, go to Leamington. I will call ahead, just go to OB triage. I will call ahead and make sure there's someone there who can see you. And then she said she would call me back in a few minutes just to let me know. So in the meantime, we're kind of like getting stuff ready to head to the hospital. Just kind of waiting for her, like, okay to go. And so she called back and she said, yep, they're waiting for you in OB triage in Leamington. So you just head there. We drive to OB triage. Again, had such a hard time getting into the car. Like any movement of the car on the road was so painful. So we got to OB triage. I want to say it was 7:30. So it had been about 2 hours, 2.5 hours since the initial thing had happened. The lovely nurse there took me in. They put a monitor on my belly to monitor the baby's heart rate, and then they put another one a little higher to measure contractions in case I was having any. Thank goodness I didn't have any contractions. They were just literally monitoring the baby. And then she gave me a little clicker, and so every time I felt the baby move, I was supposed to click the button. They monitored me there for about half an hour to 45 minutes. Baby's heart rate looked great. His movements looked great. Like everything about baby was perfectly fine. And it was about 8:30, and then they said everything looks great from like baby standpoint. Now you need to go downstairs and get an x-ray. The really frustrating part about our healthcare system is that in Canada, at least where I live, if you are going to the ER, you are preparing to stay there for at least 8 hours. Like that is just the norm. That's just, things take forever, and that's just the way that it is. As thankful as I am to not have to pay separately for our healthcare, that's what it is. We go downstairs to the ER. I had to register again, except for the ER this time, not for OB. We register for the ER and we wait. And we waited from 8:30 until about 2. And at 2, we were called in and we were given a room, and a nurse came in and she asked me a bunch of questions. Oh, I skipped something. When we got to the ER downstairs and we registered, we had to go to triage. So they basically triage you to see who is worse, essentially, and who needs to go in to see a doctor first. So in that triage, I said, I'm having some rib discomfort. I need a rib x-ray because I coughed really hard and I'm scared I broke a rib. And she wrote down that I had chest pain. Now that didn't make them take me in any faster, but she wrote down that I had chest pain. So when the nurse came in, when I had finally gotten into a room in the ER and the nurse came in, she goes, oh, so I see you're having chest pain. I was like, no, that's not what's happening. I'm having a difficult time breathing because something happened to one of my ribs. I need a rib x-ray to rule out an infection, a cracked or broken rib, or a displacement. And then so she just wrote everything down and then was like, okay, sounds good. The only chair in that little ER room was like this super uncomfortable hard chair, and I told my husband, I'm like, you are not sitting on that chair for however long it has to be. So we figured out how to make our bodies both fit on the tiny little ER bed. The nurse took my blood pressure, she checked my pulse, all that kind of stuff. All of that looked fine. So then I wish I remember what time the doctor came in, but I want to say it was only about an hour later. It wasn't that long. So this lovely, lovely, lovely doctor came in. He asked me, oh, he said the same thing. He said, oh, so I see you have chest pain. I was like, no, that's not what's happening. I used a few more medical terms because I wanted him to take me a little bit more seriously. And so I was essentially like, I have all this rib tension because I've been coughing. I coughed really hard. I felt a pop. I have searing pain radiating from my mid shaft of my ribs over to my costochondral joint. He's like, oh, are you a nurse? I was like, no, I'm a physical therapist. That's what I said. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm an athletic therapist, but whatever. I didn't want to get into it. It was the middle of the night. I was exhausted and I was in pain. So I was like, yeah, I'm a physical therapist. And he goes, okay, great. And he goes, so are you just looking for an x-ray? I was like, yes, I would like an x-ray to rule out pneumonia or any kind of infection of the sort because I've had this cough for so long. And any either displacement of my rib, breaks, cracks, any of those kinds of things. And he was like, are you sure you are 33 weeks pregnant? Are you sure this is what you want? I was like, yes, I'm okay with it. Whatever, I just want the x-ray. So he was like, okay, sounds good. We're just gonna wait for the x-ray to be ready for you. And we didn't go in to get the x-ray until around 4. I had to put a gown on, go in to get my x-ray. I could do it all standing, which was good because I couldn't lie flat. I couldn't lie on my back. I couldn't lie on my side. It was so uncomfortable. So it was all standing, which was perfect. They did from the back, from the front, from the side, like an angled one from the side. And then I basically went back into my room. I got changed. And I think it was about 45 minutes later when the doctor came in and he said, I took a quick look. I don't see anything obvious, but we have to wait for the radiologist report, which won't be ready tonight. So you guys are free to go. So I think we got home at like 5:30 or something like that. We did get the radiologist report back. Nothing was displaced. There was no fractures, no cracks, and there was no infection. So that was really the biggest things. But I still feel like my ribs are just not in the right place, and I still have quite a bit of discomfort, specifically with a deep breath. I have been pretty diligent about doing a little bit of rehab here and there, and I have a chiropractor appointment this week, so I will be going to see her, and hopefully she can adjust whatever needs to be adjusted and I can start to feel better. But yeah, so that was my fun little visit to the ER. And like the biggest reason I'm sharing this is because if this happens to happen to someone else, and you don't know what to do and you aren't sure like where you're supposed to go or who you're supposed to call or whatever, this is just my experience, and hopefully this can help someone. Even if you're not pregnant, like hopefully it can help somebody to kind of determine what it is that they should do in this situation. But anyways, other than that, I'm feeling great. Pregnancy wise, I'm feeling really, really good. I'm so thankful that I'm feeling as good as I am. And I'm just doing my best to stay as active as I can despite the rib injury. I'm just trying to, maintain mobility and eat well and all those kinds of things and continue to prep for baby. So that's what's been going on up until 34 weeks. I still have lots I want to chat with you guys about. I had my baby shower on the weekend. I had a couple midwife appointments since I chatted with you guys last. So I will update you guys on all that stuff. So stick around for that. But anyways, if you guys have any questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to leave them below and I will get back to you. But otherwise, thanks for joining me and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.